I've got your attention now. Get me signed. Get me on Contender Series. I'll fuck anybody up.
FCC middleweight champion.
He's out. There we go. He's out. It's over there for Tom. He's hurt. He's hurt. The knee, and it's down. It's over. 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, these are big shots. Now had enough for whoa! Put him out. He's out. I think he's out. He's done. He's done.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Full Contact Contender 38 post-fight show. Alex Richings, Mr. Jason Hartley over here. Obviously, we were commentating the whole event from the Olympia in Liverpool. What a great night, as always. These cards have been delivering non-stop, Jason, and we had a champion crowned, also 2 amateur title fights that went down as well. A champ, I think, for the first time ever in that regard. So it was a great time, man.
Yeah, outstanding. We saw a lot of prospects show off, put together some great wins. Emil Vujakovic, Conor Walsh. We saw some incredible knockouts, some incredible debuts. We had a fantastic card. If you guys didn't check it out, and we're about to break it all down just for you all.
Yeah, we should probably start with what happened in the main event, right? You know, It was kind of all building to that. We've got Hayder Khan, who has just put together such a good win streak, had some tough opponents along the way, and has managed to get past them, and it ends with what happened on Saturday night. He fights for the middleweight title for the second time, this time gets it done, 8-1 now, representing Pakistan and asking to be the first Pakistani fighter in the UFC. Man, if I was the UFC, you know, Contender Series is coming up in the summer. I don't know if they filled it all, but they have like 10 shows normally.
Right.
So hopefully he gets a spot on that. That is the whole thing. They're always trying to tap into these new markets, and he's done it on the regional scene and now at FCC on UFC Fight Pass. I mean, they've got to take note, and they've got to want like a Pakistani fight. They love having a first new fighter in the UFC, don't they?
Man, and yeah, talking about that moment when he, you've interviewed fighters in a post-fight situation. There's always kind of this classic thing. People always needle the commentators online when they do it, but you always kind of have an arm on them so they don't walk away and take too much time because everyone's on a tight schedule. We were about to tick over to the UFC broadcast, so we had to switch over 10 p.m. sharp UK to move over, and he grabs the mic and we're like, oh, where is this gonna go? He might just start saying, I want to thank all my sponsors for 15 minutes. You never know what's gonna happen. But he made the most of that moment, and I don't know if we got in trouble for it taking over. I think it's the best thing ever because he made the most magnificent call out. He was like, I'm gonna take on anybody on UFC, sign me. It was one of the best moments I've seen somebody just literally take their moment, jump on the mic and do something really incredible. I think he made the absolute most of that opportunity. He got the finish, got the big emphatic speech afterwards, and he came up to us, he was carrying the flag around. Such a smart guy. He understands, he's a 6'4" middleweight. There's so much he's got going for him, and he showed it all off.
Called for his shot in the UFC, said Dana White's name, so hopefully, I would love to see him there. I managed to catch him on the way back out and shake his hand, and I was like, I'll be sad if I don't get to call another one of your fights, but hopefully you're going to the UFC, so...
But moving on from there, what do you think about the co-main?
Yeah, of course. So Tom Mullen showed up in the co-main event. Tom Mullen has been on a great run recently. I think he's 7-2 now. He has those 2 losses on his pro record, but they were against tough competition, and that's the kind of guy he is. It was an incredibly dominant performance from Tom Mullen. The fight started, a few punches thrown by his opponent, immediately level changed and worked for the submission. I think it was over in about 2 minutes.
Yeah, Altasilio Sena, we were talking about this going in, just how sharp of a kickboxer he is. This guy hunts for the finish every single time he goes out there. Yeah. And man, we've seen him, even in the decisions that he loses, he's like one of those guys that has, Pyrrhic victories to talk about 90 that we've had in the past, where those guys might have won, but they got beaten up in those fights like really badly. Altasilio Sena, that's the type of fighter that he is. And he had one flurry kind of against the cage, but he wasn't able to really land too much. But, you saw a bit of that aggression, and it was immediately turned against him.
Yeah, I mean, that's what Tom Mullen does, like if you put him in that position, the best way to defend in that position is to shoot for the takedown. So that's what he's going to do. He gets the takedown, and he's just that good. Like, you're going to just cut through these people. If they can't stop your submissions, why even waste time striking the guy when you could take no damage and submit the guy immediately? It's going to be really hard to find a guy that can beat that guy, and if he goes 8-2, 9-2, I don't know how many wins he's going to need before we start talking about him maybe going to the UFC as well.
Oh yeah,
I mean, the title is probably what's next for Tom. This was a catchweight fights. Yeah, Tom Mullen, man. And when you shake that guy's hand, he's got massive hands. Like he's a big filled out guy for that weight class as well.
He's also really understated, but he came up to us after the fight and was like, you know, I'll take anybody. I'll take them all.
And he's such a professional already at this level. Obviously has a fighting family around him.
Yeah.
The Mini Mullen viral video, if you saw it, the kid punching the radiator.
Yeah.
That is his nephew, I believe, and just smashing that thing. So it runs in the family though.
But moving on down from there, it was the Callum Connor fight.
Yeah, so we had Callum Connor coming in on a 4-fight finishing streak. I believe all of them may have been in the first round. One of them maybe wasn't. So we're all expecting the same thing. Second round for one of them. But we had a really tough Brazilian opponent in Everton Cruz.
Yeah.
A guy who had not been finished in his pro career. And, you know, his only loss was to someone who's now in the PFL, a very high-level guy in Conor Hughes. So we weren't really sure what to expect going in. We knew it was going to be a tough test for Callum. As a striker, he's phenomenal. Been doing Muay Thai since he was 9 years old.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we got to see. Callum got to set the pace and just show his entire arsenal. He didn't get a finish this time, which just, again, speaks to how credible an opponent Cruz was, really, you know?
Yeah, again, about as flawless a performance as you can ask for. He wasn't able to get the finish, but, I mean, Everton was just so good. That tells you how well matched the opponent was, because he was able to roll with all the punches. His head movement was on point. His lateral movement, I mean, he was never a stationary target. He never gave, you know, Callum that opportunity to land a clean shot because he is that good. You know, he's a Muay Thai guy himself. You know, we talked about the BJJ, didn't get as much of a chance to show that off.
No. Yeah, I mean, Callum was very hard to take down there. You know, there were moments where Cruz had him against the fence and Callum, you know, did a really good job with the takedown defense, which is what you want to see. I mean, we've seen Callum get submissions, you know, but he is a striker through and through. You know, we heard a few times we heard this story last night. You know, people were telling the story of Lerone Murphy backstage at one of the FCCs.
Oh, right, yeah.
In an interview, and he then, I think that must have, because I was there at that one, it was back in Bolton, so it may have been 29 or 28, so a good couple of FCCs ago, and he said, Callum Connor's fighting tonight, and that guy is the future. Like, he is my main sparring partner. And Callum Connor's like, I don't think he was even a pro at that point, you know, but Lerone Murphy is like, this guy is it. And you can tell when he strikes, he's you know, that's what you see from world-class strikers, the ability to read the distance, just slide out of range, and the control of his body, the chaining of the attacks together, kicks from both sides and both stances. It was really, really good of a performance. And like, I want to see more Callum Connor. 5-0 now. 5-0 as a pro.
Shout out to Chanu, who does our interviews on our OnlyFans. If you guys haven't checked those out, again, that is free to sign up. If you haven't heard us talk about that, totally free on OnlyFans. But he's had a bunch of chats with him, and he's talked about how 2024 is going to be his year. So far, it's definitely turning into that, and he wants to be in the UFC by next year.
Yeah.
He's definitely on track for that.
Yeah.
You know, what did Chris Weidman, I think he was 10-0 when he beat Anderson Silva.
Yeah, 10-0.
Like, things move quickly in this sport when you're putting on performances the way he has. And that's the thing. Callum isn't afraid to talk at all.
No.
Like, he is somebody that is really refreshing to chat to, because he'll speak his mind. He'll tell you what he thinks about things, you know. I think it was before the last fight where he was like, people are going to be wondering who's this great looking guy that's like messing people up, you know. He's got a lot of confidence. Really, really fun fighter. Obviously, you saw him inside the cage last night, but, you know, I think there's a whole lot more to see moving forward. Next, I think we all agree a title has to be next.
Yeah.
What was that thing you said? Who's this pretty boy that can fight?
That's the one.
Emil Vujakovic, what do you think about when you think about him? Big, scary middleweight.
Yep.
Head kicks,
Yep.
knees.
Yep.
And he managed to chain together a combination with first a left high kick to a right knee.
Yeah, man. Sampaio was game. You know, he'd been in there for a while. He had a kickboxing experience. He's also a guy who's quite dynamic. Could throw head kicks as well. Could throw in flying knees. So we're like, oh, there's a good kickboxing matchup.
Yeah.
And it kind of was going that way, but very quickly Emil was coming forward with the power, and Sampaio was trying to get out of the way. You know, he was trying to find the moments to stay out of range, and that you see that in the finishing sequence where Emil is chasing him across the cage, throws up the left head kick right on the edge of it and still catches him, and then the accuracy on the knee as well. And if you watch the hip explosion from Emil, he just pops it and it's bang right on the freaking like center of the forehead, splits the guy open, also knocks him out at the same time.
Yeah.
Crazy high. Like, if you're gonna go take that guy to the UFC and promote him, you have like head kick, knee, head kick.
We were talking about Hader Khan getting a UFC opportunity off of what he just did last night. But then we also mentioned Emil Vujakovic, who is right there. It is so clear. And in this in particular case, we were looking at all finishes, all like marauding, coming forward, just destroying his opponent. That Aldo da Costa fight was the one that happened before this, where he just mowed the guy down for 5 minutes. The guy wouldn't go away, so he took the smart route and decided to sub him. And we know his cardio would have lasted, but he was like, okay, I love to go for the knockout, but I'm a smart guy. I'm going to take him down. I'm going to get that rear naked choke, and that's what he did. In this fight, I think Sampaio was game. He really tried his best, and you look at the two. I mean, they were pretty evenly matched in terms of size, you know, and man, he went for it. But Emil, you just can't take shots from this guy.
No, I think there is something to that. You know, this part of his life, obviously, where he had to overcome cancer, throat cancer, terrible, and that really put a dent in his career. He'd already been competing. He was out for a couple of years, and then he came back, and I actually got to call that first fight where he came back, and I had Brad Wharton next to me like, oh, this guy's amazing. He's got great head kicks. He's not fought. He's been through struggles. And then I call the fight, and he knocks the guy with a head kick. And you're like, okay, this is a guy to watch. That was amateur, wins the title, now goes pro. I just think he's got such a focus that you don't see from a lot of these guys. He takes everything so seriously. Every fight, he knows he has to win.
Yeah.
He trains incredibly hard. If you go on his Instagram, you'll see this stuff. But Emil is a guy, if you don't know, you need to go find out about him, because he's knocking people out, and you know he's going to be probably going all the way.
I think this is the reason why FCC, you know, ended up getting the, you know, contract to be on Fight Pass, because this is a part of the country where you've seen so many of these stars come from. You've seen the Patties, you've seen the Larones, you've seen the Aspinalls, you've seen literal championship level people. Yeah, Paul Craig. So many talents come out of particularly the northern part of the UK, and man, there's just so much talent, and you're seeing it now. You're getting a chance to see it in real time happen. And Emil just feels like one of those people that, I mean, if you were, I always say the, you know, central casting in Hollywood, you know, type kind of thing. He just looks like a perfect, if you were to, you know, try to hire somebody for a role, he's the perfect guy. Like, oh, we're going to make a cage fighter movie. It's not just like he looks like he's a tough guy. No, this guy fights that way.
Yeah.
He fights that way. He finishes everybody.
Yeah. Anyway, so we still have a few more fights on the main card to talk about. We've got to talk about Conor Walsh, man. Ooh. You know, second pro fight for this kid. Went pro this year after just a crazy amateur career. You know, I have a vlog that I did of my first ever FCC show, and Conor Walsh is on that card, and I turn around to the camera and I go, he's going to be in the UFC. But the finish, Jason. That was my favorite finish of the night.
Absolutely.
Conor got half an inch of space and just started dropping shots, and I started counting them in real time, and I was like, oh, I got to 10 and then 11, and he landed so many right hands, put the guy out. What an emphatic way to have your second pro fight, just with a beautiful knockout, you know?
Yeah, living up to the hype in, you know, so many different ways in that fight. It was a taller, rangier, longer guy. He was wrapping him up like crazy on the ground, and you know, you were wondering how was he going to deal with this really big, you know, guy who's doing everything he can to wrap him up. There were, you know, I can't remember what it was trying. He was at one point trying to wrap his leg around the body of Conor. And it was just the kind of flexibility that he has in being that big, long guy. He was dicey on the grounds, but Conor found that opening, man.
Yeah.
That was the best finish. I totally agree with last night.
How often do you see flyweights knock people out on the feet, let alone with ground and pound? I don't know if I've ever seen a flyweight KO with ground and pound. Like, that is scary. I mean, the guy has power as well as everything else, you know? And he took that moment. Every shot landed, 100% accuracy. So Conor Walsh, man, he's a superstar already. The fly catcher. He's got thousands of followers on social media. You know, he's obviously training with Curtis Campbell, so he has that team. He's been around the world traveling with those guys, already fought and trained and sparred with pro fighters who, you know, are in the PFL and in the UFC and in ONE. He's already had that experience, and he goes toe to toe with them, apparently, is what I've been told, and when he's just a kid. So,
and we were talking with Curtis Campbell beforehand. Obviously, Curtis Campbell is, I mean, at the top of the list in terms of UFC hopefuls. I mean, there's so many of them at this point, but he's really, really high up on that list is Curtis Campbell. And he was saying, yeah, he's not going to have a problem with his height or reach or anything like that because he trains with me.
Big guys, yeah.
I'm a bigger guy. I'm a couple weight classes up, and, you know, those two go to toe to toe all the time.
I want to see what that looks like. I mean, that's got to look amazing, right? Those two training together.
Well, I mean, it's not long before he's going to be looking at a title shot himself, but one of the brightest spots in the entire sport in this region of the world. Outstanding.
Yeah, man. Again, the full package. I know I said the Conor Walsh finish was my favorite finish, but before that fight, when we had Ryan Lockyer and Will Haycox, those two went at it. Again, this is good because both guys were pros and early on in their careers, but they agreed to fight each other, which we don't always see. And what about that banana split finish from Haycox? I wasn't even sure what had happened because it happened so quickly. You watch the replay and you're like, oh, it's a crotch rip, it's a banana split. And he ripped him apart. And what a finish, man. That is also super impressive. That one is going to be on any highlight show for the weekend. This weekend in MMA. Yeah, there was a banana split at FCC. Like, crazy finish, man.
Yeah, shout out to Cody, who does the post-fight interviews. Her partner Sean was talking about how he didn't even know what he was looking at. I think that was your reaction. We also had that reaction initially, and we're like, "Oh my God, is that really what we think it is?"
Yeah.
And then you hear it announced from Ronnie on the announcer position, and geez, what a crazy submission! You never see that. The way he just curled back that leg and spread it. I mean, you better tap because you're going to start shredding apart those legs, man. That is brutal.
I feel like it's more of a 10th planet attack. I'm not 100% sure
like
on that,
it.
but I'm pretty sure that I know that Eddie Bravo has a lot of moves like that with electric chairs and lockdowns and a lot of stuff that involves spreading your body apart in uncomfortable ways. So I loved it because I couldn't really tell what he was doing. I was like, why is he hooking and elevating this leg? Like, surely because it looked like to me initially, because he had one hook on the back, and I'm like, well, he wants that second hook, and it doesn't look like his opponent is preventing that. And he was elevating the leg, but it was obviously because he wanted to set it up so he could collect, and then with the other hook stretch and part, and it was a really nice finish, man. I loved it.
That was beautiful, man. You never see that.
All right, well, as well as all that, Jason, we've also, I think, been kind of spoiled in FCC because we have seen prospect after prospect from the women's side come through the promotion, and we just had another one making the debut last night, Summer Only, going pro for the first time, 7-1 as an amateur. That only loss was in the finals of the IMAFs, where she had basically just submitted everybody, and then she comes out on Saturday night and looks like a striking. She looked like Holly Holm on the feet, and the BJJ was Damian Maya level, maybe not that good, but she looked fantastic, basically.
Yeah, she looked amazing. We saw some early scrambles between her and Victoria. Victoria was a prospect in her own right, coming from Poland. She had a lot of support from back home. We didn't mention this earlier, but Triska Loska, when she came over, this was actually who had beaten her in the past. So this was somebody that FCC had their eye on, thought it was a good time to bring them over. But the feet is where the difference really started to show. And then, of course, that then started to make the difference on the ground as the fight went on. But yeah, just everything Summer threw just had a bit more sting to it, a bit more pop to it. And you could really see it, especially as the nose started to open up. Yeah,
I mean, it's great matchmaking. There's always good matchmaking at FCC. Victoria definitely was game, definitely very credentialed in her own right. But Summer, coming out of that Ronin team, which we've already talked about today, just looking like such a prospect, like someone who could definitely make their way to the UFC. If she performs like that across the next 2 years, 100%. Like Dana White doesn't watch that girl and go, nah, I'm good, I don't need her at 135 in a dead division when you have Summer Only out there just like absolutely world class. So yeah, I expect that we will hear her name a lot. I hope she sticks around and stays with FCC on Fight Pass. There's definitely a lot of credible opponents for her to fight as well. We've seen some of the other girls who've come through go on to PFL and things like that, but Summer Only, man, she is one. She is real, okay? All right, we can talk about as well the pro debut of Billy the Kid. All right, our amateur lightweight champion. He did that in just 4 fights. He wins the amateur lightweight title, which I don't know if anyone has done in FCC, man. He ran through the division, got the title shot because of his quality of performances, goes pro, and we see the same Billy the Kid just walking his man down, blasting him, and he chopped the calf of Assis Clementino so early. I thought it might have been over in 2 minutes, but the toughness of that Brazilian cannot be understated.
Yeah, we had the pleasure of running Tim in the hotel last night, and man, like the guy still had a smile on his face. This dude just loves to fight.
Yeah.
He's such a hard worker. You could see it in his performance. So many people would have quit after a few of those leg kicks, let alone once it got deep into the fight. I mean, the guy was never going to quit, but of course the focus has to be on Billy Adams and what he did right. He did so much right there. That game plan of those leg kicks, you know, we saw Clementino trying to counter those with overhand rights, but by the time he started doing that, his legs were already messed up. He couldn't put any weight on it and really step forward to get that counter times right. And there was just so much that went well. It was Billy Adams pretty much living up to the hype as somebody, as an amateur, that level that you just brought up, you know, everything that he had done, moving on into the pros. Excellent debut. About as good as you can ask for.
Yeah, I mean, like early on, he was talking to him after all those calf kicks ago. He's like, "What have you got? What have you got?" And then flash forward 10 minutes, Clementino's still in there, and I think Billy was probably like, "Oh damn, man! I kind of wish he would have just gone away," but he didn't. And Billy did throw the kitchen sink at him, left hooks, head kicks from both sides, but Clementino just not going anywhere. But in terms of a pro debut, super impressive from Billy Adams, and I'm sure he still is happy with that performance. And you know, lightweight division is open to him. There's a lot of guys for him to fight. So kicking off the show, we had another former amateur champion, the former amateur featherweight champion, Mateusz Urquell, also from Team Ronin, who we've mentioned a few times tonight. Fantastic performance from that guy. I mean, one of the most dominant performances of the night. Got it done incredibly quickly, cut through the man. And this is a guy in Urquell who we've seen get finishes late. You know, sometimes they go a little longer if you can take his power and his pressure. But tonight it was just straight to the submission, and he made it look super easy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it looked like a killer coming out there. And this is somebody that we know that can push the pace for 5 rounds and still get a knockout. That's how he ended his amateur career. And this time we got to see a bit more of the submission game that we'd seen in previous fights, but he showed it off now as a pro, and he looked outstanding. He made it look so easy. You really didn't even have to see the stand-up. He essentially, as a full mixed martial artist, used that side of his game, and there's nobody home. You know, Al Shubrem is outstanding. Everybody loves the guy. He's a great personality. He has great rapport with the FCC staff.
Yeah.
You know, everybody was talking about that last night, and they're all gutted for him. But on the same token, you have to be happy for, you know, somebody like Mateusz Urquell.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy who had a lot of experience as an amateur. I think 8-3, fought a lot of tough guys, and now as a pro, looks like he's just stepped it up a notch. Again, he looked in incredible shape. I mean, he's really strong for that featherweight division, and used every bit of that, not just with the power he's got in the striking, but we saw that with the takedowns, and then also the speed of the transitions on the ground to get to the submission straight away. So
yeah, you got a couple more months for the September one, and that's the kind of thing that you guys can expect to see at these FCC shows. You see it every single time. You see excellent debuts, excellent prospects moving up the ladder, people getting title shots, people getting the title, and of course at the top of the card you saw Hader maybe getting a UFC shot next. So
that's kind of the story coming out of FCC 38. You know, Hader Khan, the new middleweight champion, and plenty of prospects on the way up, and some fantastic debuts as well. Only Billy and Mateusz, all of them make pro debuts tonight, looking amazing. So look forward to FCC 39 coming at you in September. We will be going back to Liverpool and the Olympia. That's about it for the breakdown show. Make sure you go ahead and watch all of those fights. If you missed them, they're on Fight Pass. You can check out the FCC socials to see some of the highlights and the finishes. Of course, the YouTube channel as well. If you want to catch some of the preliminary fights, they'll be up there, as well as the rest of the card eventually, if you can't head to UFC Fight Pass. But thank you very much for myself, Alex Richings, Mr. Jason Hartley. This has been the breakdown show for FCC. And yeah, we'll be here for the next show, Jason.
yeah, see you next time.
See you next time.